We'll be using this graph to look at the difference between imposing a price ceiling and opening up to trade and having a world price. If you look at this graph right now, sorry, I'm going to move that. You look at this graph right now, you can see we have an equilibrium price of 100 and we have an equilibrium quantity of 200. If a price ceiling is imposed in this market, okay, let's say a price ceiling of 50 is imposed. Okay, what we want to see is what is the impact on consumer and producer surplus. Before the price ceiling, this would be the consumer surplus, and this would be the producer surplus. Okay, if a price ceiling is imposed, only this amount, or what looks like approximately 100 units of this good will be produced. So this will greatly limit the output and diminish the consumer and producer surplus. If we take this line up to the demand curve, because this is now the quantity, okay, that is being bought and sold, you can see that this portion of combined consumer and producer surplus is now no longer being generated. Okay, people are no longer experiencing that level of satisfaction, that value has been lost. We'll come back to this next week and we'll talk further about the concept of deadweight loss. Okay, this is what Aplia was showing you, is what happens to consumer and producer surplus in the event of a price ceiling. A lot of you, when you looked at the FRQ on oil, interpreted that the same way because the line for the world price looks a whole lot like the price ceiling line. However, those are two completely different concepts. So let's go back here. Okay, here's our market. I'm going to remove that line for a moment. Okay, we'll go back and look. Here again is consumer surplus and producer surplus. Now in this case, instead of imposing a price ceiling, we are going to open this market up to trade. The world price in this case is going to be $50. Now this is not a government imposed limit on the price. This is just the price at which this good is trading on the world market. And because so much of this good is trading on the world market, the introduction of this country, say the United States, to this market is not going to have any impact on that world price. World price is already set. We are now simply entering this market. At the world price, okay, I'm going to label this PW. At the world price, you can see that consumers in the United States now want to buy 300 units of this good. But domestic producers only want to manufacture 100 units. So the quantity demanded is here, but the quantity supplied domestically is way over here at 100. Okay, so now where's the consumer surplus? The consumer surplus goes to every consumer who is able to purchase this good at the world price, who values it at or above the world price. Consumer surplus is now this large triangle. Okay, these individuals over here, okay, who were willing to pay between $100 and $50 for this good are now in the market. They're now able to buy this good. So their consumer surplus is added to the consumer surplus we had before. However, you can see that the producers now within the United States can only sell the good for $50, which means there are a whole lot of producers, right, who were willing and able to sell the good for more than $50, and now they're out of the market, right? Does that producer surplus disappear? Well, producer surplus becomes much smaller because producer surplus is between the price, the supply curve, and the y-axis. Okay, but this whole area in here, which used to be part of producer surplus, is now transferred to the consumers. So it's not lost. Okay, consumer surplus is this gigantic triangle, okay, and producer surplus is this small triangle. There is actually no deadweight loss in this case with trade. There is, in fact, a gain in total surplus. And the gain in total surplus in this situation is this triangle right here. Okay? All of this surplus did not exist before. Because remember, before, consumer surplus was this area, the triangle that says the small green CS, and this area down here. And now we have the tiny producer surplus, but we have an enormous consumer surplus. So this is the quantifiable benefits of trade. Unlike when we had a price ceiling with the same low price, now we actually have producers who are willing to supply at this low price, foreign producers. Hopefully this helps explain the difference between the oil FRQ and the APLIA question where you saw dead weight loss.